Thank you for coming on Unscripted with Daniel. And yeah, we're going to talk about redistricting and your speech on the Senate floor, Indiana Senate floor. And well, you're Jennifer Hora, just for my audience. And is that pronounced right? Is it?
It is. Yep.
Okay. All right. And you're a political science at VU, Valparaiso
hmm
University. Is there anything else you'd like to introduce about yourself before we get started?
I'm a professor at Valparaiso University. I have been here since 2006. I study American politics and I teach state and local in
Okay.
particular, relevant to this topic.
Definitely relevant. We're talking about state here, and you're definitely stepping up and letting your local voice be heard statewide. So some of the points that you made is that I listened to the speech two times or several times, is that they or Republicans are making a whataboutism case. Can you explain what whataboutism is exactly?
Sure. So maybe I'll back us up a little bit. I
Sure,
hope that's okay, Danielle.
absolutely.
So redistricting is a common event. There's nothing new about it. We have been doing redistricting and gerrymandering since the founding of this country. And it's always political, it's always controversial, right? There's nothing new about that. And I've taught about redistricting in every US government class ever taught, and every state and local class I've ever taught, right?
Hmm.
This is a common issue. Obviously, 2025, there are some really unique elements to this in that it is almost unprecedented to have it taking place mid-decade. So the
Right.
normal is we take a census in the years that have a zero. Then the states are responsible for drawing lines. They draw their
Hmm.
lines for their state house, their state senate, as well as the United States House.
Hmm.
And so they did all of that in 2021. 2021 was actually a little bit complicated because the 2000 census was delayed because of COVID. So
Hmm.
they
Hmm.
actually passed them, they usually pass them sort of early in the year. They did not get finalized until October of 2021. Normally, we would be operating under those maps until the 2030 census is completed and the drawing of the lines 2031. We have in 2025, which is where you started us,
Right.
a situation where our president is exhibiting an incredible amount of pressure on the states to do this outside of the normal sort of years that end in zero process.
Right. Right.
And um, we have had one other example of this. Texas did mid-decade redistricting in the 90s.
Hmm.
Otherwise, we I don't have any other examples of it, right? I'm not a historian, I'm a political scientist, so I study more current politics. Maybe something happened in the 1800s or something like that. But current in the
Right.
past 40 to 50 years, this is just highly unusual. And again, my only example of that before 2025 is Texas.
And it's funny.
Now,
Yep. Go ahead.
our president put out that he is encouraging states to do that. And so we saw, like you mentioned, Texas started it. We
Right.
saw California directly respond to them. We've seen Missouri. We've now had Virginia has entered the chat. Maryland has started talking about it. I think we're up to almost 10 states when you count Indiana in there.
And if we're to look at the electoral demographics of these, are these mostly Republican or are they 50-50 Democrat, Republican? What are we looking at exactly?
Sure. Um, to date, the ones that have taken action are Republican states being pushed by the administration. And
Hmm.
so Texas kicked that off. California, the law that they wrote is so unusual.
Hmm.
They were literally they have a bipartisan commission to draw the lines. It's anytime that you have bipartisan or nonpartisan, they're a bit imperfect, but they're a step in the right direction, right? They're a lot
Hmm.
closer to being politically neutral.
Hmm.
There was a big push for sort of that movement in the 1990s. Several states adopted nonpartisan or bipartisan commissions, or they adopted commissions where at least some of the members of the commission were nonpartisan. And we saw several states, like Iowa was one of them, California is one of them. Unfortunately, the states that responded and did that were almost all Democratic states. And the
Hmm.
Republican-controlled legislatures didn't want to give up that power. And Democrats nationally and at several state levels they really embraced that. They didn't get a ton of traction. Like those of us who were watching it were really hoping it would take off and spread to a majority of states. It didn't.
Hmm.
In most states, the state legislature is the one ultimately responsible for drawing the lines and approving the maps for all three of those bodies, the
Hmm.
state Senate, the state House, and the United States House of Representatives seats.
Okay, so let me try and understand it or explain what you said and see if I have it right. So California didn't redraw maps in their Prop 40 legislation in a way that was partisan, but instead was more bipartisan and therefore is not really like what we're seeing
So
in Indiana. Or is it similar?
Nope, sorry. I maybe I gave too much background. That's how they were prior to 2025.
Okay,
They
prior to
were, yep. And
2025.
now they saw what Texas was doing and they're like, "Hey, we thought the whole country was inching towards nonpartisan, bipartisan. That's why we passed this law." And sorry, I forget how long ago that there was a real movement for it, like in the late 90s and the early
Oh,
2000s.
okay.
Um, and so in 2025, they said, we were being progressive. We thought everybody was moving in this direction. If you guys aren't, and it's literally written, there only goes into effect but if other states are doing this, and they actually put it to a referendum. So all their voters voted on it. So it's a really just an unusual development.
Yeah, it that is unusual. That is through a referendum. Um and okay, so they are basically saying that if somebody else does it, we're gonna pull the trigger and we're gonna pull the, go nuclear on this. Um which makes sense. Though, I mean, we would like to see our public servants not necessarily uh, fall into that trap of maybe uh, you know, well, he did it too, so I have to do it. And we're just going to go in this vicious cycle of not obeying the law. Um, I guess I understand what California is doing, but there's obviously an inherent danger in that cycle. I don't know if you see that
Yeah,
or
so as a political scientist, I was really, like I said, I've been teaching this for more than 25 years. I was really excited there for a while. And Iowa was one of the first states to do it. I think it might have actually finally like got into put into action in 2000 or like the 2002 elections. Um, and I was really excited, and several other states started sort of like at least contemplating those bills and taking some of those actions. Yeah, I would much rather have it be done in a nonpartisan or bipartisan. Truthfully, I would much rather see some sort of proportional representation, but that's a little bit too radical for us. We'd have to have some constitutional amendments and overthrow our whole system. And, I don't foresee that, but we just know it's um, our Senate is the least representative body of all elected legislative bodies in the world. There is no legislative body that looks less like the population of the whole that it serves than our United States Senate anywhere in the dozens and
Hmm.
dozens of democracies and more than if they have an upper house and a lower house. Um, I don't think we're going to get there. So a nice intermediate step would be to truly have some nonpartisan and bipartisan map drawing commissions. We do have best practices. There are political scientists that study this. There's actually three really highly statistical mathematical models that I don't produce, but I read,
Hmm.
and they study. One of them is called the efficiency gap,
Hmm. Interesting.
and it is essentially it's a measure of how partisan gerrymandered your districts are. And they put out there academically, it's a calculation of um yeah, of just like of how gerrymandered you are, how much cracking and packing there is in your state.
Hmm.
And their goal is that the state maps are plus or minus 7%. Okay, that's like it's a calculation of wasted votes, right? They want
Hmm.
you they want competitive elections, right? Speaking in some
Right,
general
right.
terms. Um, and that's their goal, and there's a measurement of that, and we can easily draw maps. This is all AI, this is all computer assisted. We have statisticians, right? Like this is not we have experts that can and do this. And currently Indiana is, I think, plus 14% on the efficiency gap. So we are two times outside of what we would hope if we actually had competitive districts.
Hmm.
Um, and we're in the 60th percentile. We are the 60th percentile most Republican gerrymandered state in the nation currently under our current 7-2 maps. If these 9-0 maps pass, they had to change the scale. We will be plus 28%. We will be four times outside
Wow.
this measure of competitiveness, and we will be the most Republican gerrymandered state in the nation. No other state will have a less efficient map for representing their constituents.
Wow. Um, I'm sorry, my fan just turned on. I gotta just
Oh,
close my door so it doesn't mess up the audio. Sorry, just
okay.
1 second. All right.
Yeah, that's a
So,
risk. That's a risk at my office.
right, AC turns on and everything
Yep.
just fuzzes
Yep.
up. Um, but yeah, can not to get too much in the weeds there, but tell me about these numbers that you're talking about. You're saying the 60th percentile in in what exactly was that? In
The most Republican gerrymandered. And so
okay,
basically
most
this
Republican
I mean this
January.
and so what you're looking at, I mean gerrymandering everyone, every state does it. Every state does it to some degree. It's how much and how radical and how much is it hurting
Hmm.
constituents in my opinion. Um, that constituents are better served if their elected bodies are what they want them to be.
Yeah.
And um, if we're getting really let's pull ourselves out of the weeds.
Okay. Let's do that.
That right now, Democrats consistently get about 40 to 43% of the vote in Indiana. Statewide vote in the highest statewide on the ballot. So talking
Hmm.
about governors and Senate elections. And that's been Democrats have gotten 40 to 43% of the vote for almost 20 years. Republicans get about, well, 53 to 59. And in particular, in the last election, I'm pretty sure I think Governor Braun got 53% and Senator Banks got 59. So, talk about either of those numbers. Right now, the Democrats have, with 40% of the vote, they have 22% of the United States House seats.
I see. Right.
With 40% of the vote, they have 30% of the Indiana House seats. And with 40 to 43% of the vote, and this is not a one-off. That's what they've gotten for like the last 8 elections or something.
Right.
They only have 20% of the Indiana Senate seats,
That's
Indiana State
crazy.
Senate. And
Um,
so that's what that's most people would assume that that's really hyper partisan.
mhm,
And most people would say if you're getting 40 to 43%, then you should hopefully get 40 to 43% of the seats. And if the victors get a little bit of a bonus, and that would be 4 United States House seats. If you're going to say like, well, yeah, but Indiana is really a red state. They're getting 59% of the vote in the last United States Senate election. But you would still say then that they should get 6 and the Democrats should get 3. So already, um, it's overly partisan gerrymandered.
right.
Like the model, that's what political science models say. And they're looking to make it literally the most extreme Republican gerrymandered state in the nation.
Yeah, it's obviously partisan and it's hard to you can't escape that argument very easily. I've seen video of Neymar talking about, well, it's constitutional, so we can do it. So I guess we're just going to go ahead and do it. Um, but here is a thought occurring in my mind. The VRA, how much would the VRA, if it weren't sort of, in my opinion, and in the opinion of a lot of people, a bit crippled due to some Supreme Court decisions in the recent past. Um, would that change what's going on here? Like, for example, one of the provisions allows for the federal government to look at those maps and discern whether these maps are disenfranchising majority minority districts. I would assume that would do something. Um,
Yep.
and
So Indiana, is another just really interesting stuff coming out. The Senate Majority Leader has spoken about this quite a bit, and he has, some say sort of obsessively, he says these are partisan gerrymandering. This is party. This is party. And so some people reading that are making exactly the face that you just made, in that they're surprised. They're like, well, why is he saying that? Well, he's saying that because if they're partisan, then they're not racial.
hmm,
Okay, so he is setting up the record and the quotes. He is reading, he is saying these things that are read into Indiana record.
hmm,
Um, and so that's the idea. So he's setting that up. Um, in normal circumstances, yes, the Voting Rights Act would not allow for the gerrymandering that's going on in the Indiana 7th. And the Indiana 7th is almost entirely Marion County. It
right.
is not all of Marion County because our numbers are about 710,000 people make up a district, and Marion County actually has more population than that. So the district can't even be the size of one county.
I see.
They, um, the data, the numbers support, yes, there would be a lawsuit there for minority disenfranchising. Probably not the first district, but the 7th.
Okay.
and it is because of sort of competing decisions that have come out of federal courts. It is unclear um, how that ruling might come out.
Okay. Okay. All right. Very interesting. I want to, let's see. Now, you only had about 2 minutes to state your case to the Indiana
Exactly
Senate,
2 minutes.
uh,
Exactly 2 minutes. The bell went off.
right? And so if you had just as much time in the world, what would you try to explain to them? Let's hear your best case. I
Oh,
know you're limited
so
on time now too, but
yeah. I mean, I think this is one of the things that's really nice about allowing public testimony is so many people brought their own area of expertise, right? And
yeah,
so, in Northwest Indiana in Porter County, both a member of the Chesterton City Council and a member of the Valparaiso City Council,
right.
Aaron Collins from Chesterton and Barb Domer from Valparaiso, they both came in and they spoke, and they really brought the wonderful perspective from being representatives, being elected officials in a county that would be split up. Um, and they just really shined a light on that. We also had Leslie Nuss, who ran for Indiana Senate. She was another person from Northwest Indiana that went down and gave testimony to the Indiana Senate
Mhm.
Elections Committee on Monday, December 8th.
Hmm.
And so um, I could talk about redistricting for hours, and my students would. Yeah, I think my students and my husband and my teenage children are very glad that I had some other outlets for talking about these things in the last week or two, because we've been talking about it a lot more in class and everywhere I go for the last several months and whatnot. You sort of, I said like the only argument that the other side is talking about is I called not very, not very profoundly, but whataboutism.
Hmm.
Because all they say is like, well, what about California and what about Illinois? And that's just a really weak argument. That's just not a very evidence-based argument. Especially if you actually study what El like yes, Illinois has more Democrats because their state overwhelmingly votes Democrat and
Right.
right, like and somewhat similar with California. So I definitely talked about that. The thing I talked about a lot too is communities of interest. So
Hmm.
there are some actual redistricting principles that are supposed to be followed, right? Because it's
Hmm.
not, I mean, that's the state legislatures draw lines for three bodies, but also we also have to draw lines for our city council districts, and that goes on everywhere across the nation. We draw lines for our county council, right? Like this is
Hmm. Right.
something that a lot of bodies do, a lot of different elected bodies do that, and they draw them for themselves. And like one of the just really basic principles that is usually agreed upon is we should keep communities of interest together.
Hmm.
And so already standing political or social boundaries should be respected.
Hmm.
So county lines should be respected if possible, city lines, school boards, any other sort of districting. And what you want, and Barb Domer made just an excellent point on this in her speech yesterday. She said like her, teeny, I don't, her tiny little District 3 of Valparaiso, where I'm trying to think, I think she has something like 5,000 people-ish that she is their elected official. They would actually be spread in two different congressional districts. And we have a messed up budget cycle as a system as it is, where congressional representatives bring home what we call bacon or pork
Hmm.
to their districts. And so if you are looking for some grant funding for
Hmm.
parks, if you are looking for some special roads funding, if something, we had, uh, geez, this goes back a few years, but like there was a real HIV outbreak in southern Indiana,
Hmm.
and there was like one congressional district that it was impacting way more than the other eight. And
Hmm.
so when there's something sort of unique, like, and for us it might be the steel mills, right? Or it might be the
Right.
national park. You really want one member of Congress to be trying to help you solve that problem. And who would Councilwoman Domer go to when, instead of working with one, she has to go to two
Right.
instead of, it's just, and that's been a principle, that's been pretty accepted universally by Democrats, by Republicans, that they try not to split those up. And then Erin Collins, Chesterton, elected official, she really did a good job of centering, like, we just don't have the her district that which would then be congressional district 2 gets
Right.
lumped in almost all the way to the Ohio border. And she's like, yeah. And she's like, the manufacturing in Porter County is just radically different. The industry is different. The tourism is different. Um, it's not, it's not beneficial. If we're talking about like, and to give you an idea, so what is currently the seventh district, which is most of Marion County, they would split that up into four districts. One of those districts goes all the way west to Illinois. One of those districts goes all the way east to Ohio, and one of the districts goes all the way south to Kentucky. Um, and a member of the Indiana House. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on his name. I've been following and reading quotes from so many. I think he's from LaPorte County.
Hmm.
Um, he made just a really great little video, and he walked from what is currently in Indianapolis, the Indianapolis district. He crossed the road and he's like, I'm now in the same district that runs all the way to the Kentucky border. And like over his shoulder, you see the Indianapolis state capitol. And that's when, like they don't, that you're putting suburbs of Indy with suburbs of Louisville. That it's just again like we have the population, we have nine districts. We don't have to do this, right? Like some states, North Dakota only has one. So if you're running for the House in North Dakota, yes, you have all of North Dakota. You have to represent all of it.
Hmm.
But we have nine. They
Yeah.
should be able to focus more, like we should have one that focuses on the tourism and the steel industry that's so critical to northern Indiana. And that's very different than the Louisville suburbs, and that's very different than the Indianapolis suburbs.
Definitely. Well, I know you're running low on time, and just to actually respond to what you're saying, that's a lot of voter disenfranchisement.
Mhm.
Wow. And it just makes it so clear that that's what they're doing. It,
And,
you know, it
and if you want, and end on a real positive note, that's a little sarcasm.
okay.
Um, Indiana is always bottom 10 of the 50 states of voter turnout. And often we are bottom five. We're
Wow.
right. We are always below 40 and sometimes below 45. We are always at the wrong end. In my opinion, as a political scientist, I want people voting, right? Like I want people voting. And do you know how you disenfranchise people? You make them feel like they don't know they're elected officials, that they're elected. And I mean, here's another interesting, um, when you redraw the lines too often,
Hmm.
people don't even know who their elected official is.
Yeah.
And so it's like, you and I pay a lot of attention to politics. That's not a normal voter. That's not an average citizen. They just
No.
want to tune in once in a while and then not, and then tune out. and
Right.
go to their job and deal with their family, and not worry about politics. And they don't even know who to write a letter to when they need, literally your social security check doesn't show up. Your unemployment doesn't show up in how you thought it would be. Your Affordable Care Act subsidy has significantly changed and you are afraid that you cannot figure something out. You're a veteran and your veterans benefits aren't coming through. The point of contact of those is any federal issue is your um, United States House representative. And if those lines change every 5 years, if they change, people, I know what will happen. People who live currently in the northern part of Porter County will still be calling Frank Mervan's office
Yep.
or whoever, right? Whoever wins, and he won't win. He won't win. A
Very
Republican will win.
unlikely that he wins in the new
Now,
district if they do
you,
get it. Right.
the models tell us there's a 99% chance of a Republican winning each and every one of the 9 districts. There's less than a 1% chance of a Democrat winning any
Wow.
9 as the maps that were proposed by the Indiana House. I don't bet, I don't gamble, but if I were a gambling person, yep, there's
All right.
the
Let's put it
Democrat
on
will not
Kalshi,
win.
right?
Yeah, people, I mean, a lot of people are just, they're like, oh, well, then maybe the Democrats would win more. And I'm like, oh, I really admire your enthusiasm, but it just, again,
Yeah.
1% is really low.
It's very low, and even despite all the attention that's being brought to, the Trump administration and all the hate we see, it's not what the average voter is actually seeing. And yeah. Uh yes, sarcastic happy note. We have
Sorry.
a yeah, have a lot of uh a lack of voter turnout. Get out and vote, guys. People who watch sports. I am not a sports person, but I'm a politics person. But if you're a sports person, please vote. Know who your representative is. Okay. That's important. Okay. Well, thank you, Jennifer Ora, for taking the time to speak with me and just spread some good information about what's going on
Thank
downstate.
you. Thank you
And
for letting me talk about this issue that I care a lot about.
yeah, well, maybe I'll see you next time on a different episode of Unscripted with Daniel, and have a good one.
Thank you. You too. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye. Let's see.